Hi guys, I am live, I think on Facebook and Instagram. I'm just gonna wait a couple seconds to make sure that it's working in both places. I believe it is. Okay, so I wanna start just by introducing myself in case someone's watching this that doesn't know me. So if you don't know me, my name is Amy Stanford. A little bit about me. I was an elementary school teacher for 14 years. I'm the mom of 3 children, and after healing my middle daughter from regressive autism through nutrition and supplementation and detoxifying our home and our bodies and biomedical intervention almost 13 years ago, I became really passionate about helping others to heal as well and to heal their children as well. So while I was still teaching, I became a Talk About Curing Autism mentor, and I volunteered my time to help other parents navigate methods of healing their children from autism as well, just as a volunteer while I was still teaching. Then eventually I decided to pursue my passion in helping parents heal their children by becoming a certified nutrition consultant, which is what I do now. I have certifications in both holistic and bio-individual nutrition, and my passion continues to be helping parents to heal their children. Although I do work with a lot of different people, that is definitely my passion. I do that a few different ways. I have an online course for parents to work independently, and then I also work one-on-one with parents as well. So just that's a little introduction. So the first thing I want to say before I get into this, because this has a lot of emotional pieces to it, and a lot of times emotions can be very sensitive. And so first and foremost, I am not an us against them type of person. I am a we all fit together and we all can work together. And I like to see everyone's perspectives and everyone's opinions on things. Everyone's path is different. Everyone's experience is different. But today I just want to share some of what I struggled with personally as a parent of a child regressing into autism and then working on healing her, and some of what the hundreds of parents that I've worked with over the years that were also going through the same thing that I went through have also struggled with, okay? This is definitely not one size fits all. Everyone's story is different. It's just I've seen a lot of consistencies along the way, and I feel like it's something that should be talked about more and normalized more so that people feel more supported in their journey, whatever that looks like. So if this resonates with you and helps you in any way, that will make me so happy. But if this doesn't resonate with you at all, that's also okay too. So today I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about guilt, grief, and something called cognitive dissonance. Bear with me, even if you haven't heard that term, when I start talking about what that means. If you are a regressive autism parent, it'll sound familiar to you. So these are steps that many of us parents have to work through emotionally in order for us to be in a place to start taking the steps to physically work on physically healing our children from regressive autism. So it's definitely a journey. So the first thing I want to talk about is cognitive dissonance. So while you might not be familiar with that term, like I said, most regressive autism parents are familiar with the feeling, okay? So it's something many of us have had to overcome. Okay, so let's talk about what is that? Like, what does that even mean? So cognitive dissonance basically happens when we hold contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, and it's typically experienced as psychological stress when we participate in an action that goes against one or more of our beliefs, values, ideas, okay? This happens many, many times as a parent, okay? So I don't know if any of this resonates with you, but just see if any of this resonates with you. Sometimes our parental instinct tells us that our baby who is perfectly well and healthy doesn't need to be taken into the doctor every few months, okay? But that inner knowingness often contradicts the way we've been raised, what has been instilled in us of what good, responsible parents do. So we either look into why we need to be taking them in all the time, so many times, and create a new belief system around that. and begin to question things, or we go with what we've been programmed to believe is right and responsible, okay? There's no right or wrong, it's just different ways of doing things. We find things to confirm our choice either way, no matter what we choose, and we ignore things that go against our choice, okay? This happens many times when our child begins to regress. We often know exactly what is happening, but it goes against everything we've held on to as truth. It shatters our belief systems, it shatters our feelings of trust, safety, and security, and comfort just living within the world that we've been living in. Okay, so there's that cognitive dissonance. So some examples of this are when we continue to rely on doctors to tell us what's best for our child and what is possible for our child, when we have an inner knowing of what's best and what is truly possible for our child. Okay, so sometimes what that looks like is ignoring that inner knowingness or that intuition and throwing that to the wayside, okay? But it doesn't always look like that. It can look like a lot of different things. Sometimes we even encounter cognitive dissonance with the food we buy and give to our children as we watch them regress. So we struggle with things like they'll only eat these foods. These are their favorite foods. They love these foods, while at the same exact time struggling internally every time we feed them those foods, because we have an inner feeling that those same foods are contributing to their symptoms and to their regression. Okay, so there's this like internal fight within us that we struggle with. So with cognitive dissonance, when two actions or ideas are not psychologically consistent with each other, we do all in our power to change them until they become consistent. The discomfort is triggered by our belief clashing with new information that we're receiving. So we try to find a way to resolve the contradiction to reduce our discomfort. In order to take steps to healing our children, though, we have to break through this cognitive dissonance most times, okay? Most times we have to do that. And that's oftentimes a struggle, and it does take a little bit of time sometimes. So basically, as human beings of any kind, going through anything at all, we strive for this internal consistency within us, this psychological consistency, in order for us just to function in the world and make sense of the world and just make our way through the world. So when we experience this internal inconsistency, we tend to become uncomfortable, and therefore we're motivated to reduce that inconsistency, right? To create consistency within our beliefs and our patterns and things like that. So then we make changes to justify whatever it is we're choosing, right? So whatever it is we choose, we need to be able to justify that. So we either rationalize what is causing us this internal struggle, or we avoid circumstances and we avoid contradictory information that would increase the stress, right? That would increase that internal argument, that internal discomfort, okay? So what this can look like, okay, these are just some examples, is avoiding talking to other parents who are working on healing their children, avoiding reading research that contradicts our accepted long-held beliefs, avoiding reading books about healing autism, and avoiding attempting to heal our children, because that would force us to accept this new contradictory world that we've uncovered. Okay, so oftentimes it doesn't match with everything we've been raised with, everything we've been taught to believe is true. It's this huge internal struggle, this huge internal battle. And we either break through that cognitive dissonance or we live in it for a period of time, and sometimes for a while. So in other words, admitting that healing could be possible, we're also admitting that something happened to physically injure or damage our child, right? Because in order for us to admit that healing is able to occur, we have to also admit that something happened to physically injure or damage our child. And we'll talk about why that's so difficult in just a minute when we go into guilt and grief. So if something happened to injure or damage our child's physical body, then steps can be taken to reverse the damage or injury that has occurred. But many times admitting this requires busting through our cognitive dissonance and dealing with some other things that we're going to get into. So coping with the contradictory ideas or experiences is very stressful. It requires energy and effort to sit with those seemingly opposite things that all seem true. Okay, so what scientists have discovered is that what people do is we end up resolving it by blindly believing whatever we choose to believe. Okay, so we can either bust through it and break it down, or we can just blindly follow it because it's more comfortable that way. Okay, but once we break through the cognitive dissonance, then we have more to deal with. Then we have to work on our grief. Okay, so let's talk about what grief has to do with healing our children from regressive autism. And really, this is about healing ourselves first, because first and foremost, we have to heal ourselves. So what does our grief look like? We have grief in losing the life that we had pictured. We have grief in losing parts of our child. But the hugest grief is losing the comfort of being safe and cared for within the systems we had put lifelong trust into. So this cognitive dissonance has to do a lot with these systems that we had put all of our trust and belief into. And so we're grieving that safety. We felt safe in that world. We felt safe in that system. And now that that's broken down for us, we're grieving the loss of that safety and comfort and feeling taken care of. So it's like we lose the compass of our life. We kind of get off track, like we don't understand anything. We lose the truth that we held and stood firmly our whole life, that truth that we knew. Many times we lose friends and family as well, as they stay firm in the old belief system that we have now left behind. We had to leave it behind in order to push past our cognitive dissonance and then work to heal our child. But many times our friends and family have to fight us on what we're doing because it doesn't resonate with their cognitive dissonance, right? They can't accept where we're going, okay? So as we watch our children regress, we then also are working through stages of grief. So shock and denial is usually the first one. Oftentimes, this is the way I felt. Maybe you felt this way too. I felt if I don't say it out loud, maybe it'll work itself out, right? Let's not talk about it. Let's not say it, because then it makes it real. If we ignore it, maybe it will go away, right? Maybe we're just imagining the regression. Maybe if we just ignore it, it'll go away. Maybe they're just a late talker. I got this one a lot. Maybe they're just a late talker. But the problem with that was my daughter had 15 words she used every single day. She was very outspoken. She was very talkative. And then she lost it all like that. It was a clear regression, okay? But I had a lot of people saying that to me. So maybe I should go with that. Then I don't have to deal with the truth, right? So it was this whole like, maybe it'll go away. And then there's also the maybe regression is normal, right? So you deal with all these processes. It is a huge process for the parents, okay? So then after you go through the denial, then comes pain and guilt, okay? So once you accept it as truth, this is really happening, this regression is really happening, I'm watching it with my own eyes, I'm admitting it, I'm saying it, I'm stating it, maybe to my spouse. Then comes pain and guilt. Extreme paralyzing guilt, okay? So let me know if you felt this, because I know I felt this to my bones, to my core. Extreme guilt in not trusting our intuition, because oftentimes there was intuition that was happening that we were ignoring, right? That has to do with that cognitive dissonance. Our intuition was going against everything that we had been programmed, or whatever word you want to use, trained to believe as truth, right? So we didn't trust our intuition because we're taught not to trust our intuition. We're taught to trust these systems, okay? So extreme guilt in not trusting our intuition, not trusting our inner knowing, not trusting our mom instincts or our dad instincts, our parent instincts. Guilt in our own ignorance, guilt in our own innocence, guilt in our own unquestioning belief in others knowing what's best for us and our children over our own inner knowing. Guilt over not digging, not researching, not taking time to make informed decisions. This is all guilt that we have to work through. Guilt in not asking the hard questions, not standing up for ourselves and our children, not standing in our own power, but allowing the perceived authority, power, and control of a system to dictate our choices as mothers and parents. Okay, so we're still working through the grief. Next comes the anger. Sometimes, not always. Some people deal with anger more than others. So this is normal. This is a normal step. So oftentimes people have anger at the system that we believed in, anger at our spouse. There is a lot of divorce when it comes to regressive autism families, okay? So that anger can come at the system, that anger can come at the spouse, the anger could come at the authority figures that we put our trust in, lots of anger at ourselves for not knowing what we didn't know before we knew it. Does that resonate with anyone? Lots of anger and guilt about not knowing what we didn't know before we knew it. We have to work through that. We have to release that. It takes time. The next step is depression and loneliness. I know I had this, okay? We feel like we're in a dark hole. We feel alone. We feel no one's supporting us. No one is understanding us. We feel that everyone is judging us while no one truly understands us. We get judgment from all angles, right? We get judgment from other parents like ourselves because maybe they're stuck in that cognitive dissonance and we've busted through it. And so they are judging us for working to healing our child. We get judged by friends and family because of that cognitive dissonance again. So there is just a lot of, feeling judged and misunderstood and alone, okay? Yes, I didn't go with my intuition. Absolutely. But we have to let that go. I'm going to get to that at the very end, okay, of how we can work through it and let it go, okay? So eventually, after we work through the stages of grief and guilt and cognitive dissonance, eventually most of us parents come to a place of acceptance, understanding, and compassion for ourselves. And this is my hope for all of you and for all of the parents dealing with this, with any sense of this. Even it doesn't even have to be regressive autism, but anything your child is going through. It could be, an autoimmune issue. It could be ADD or ADHD. It could be some kind of chronic illness. It could be cancer. There's all this guilt and grief, related to all of that, to all of it as parents, right? So that is my hope for all of you. So the place that hopefully we get to is a place where the lessons that we've learned and the truths that we've uncovered have led us to a place we would have never been without the experiences that we had. Okay? And before we can work to heal our children, we have to work to heal ourselves, to make it through all these layers and all these steps to heal ourselves so that then we can put in the work to physically heal our children, right? To be in a place where we can do that. So it's literally an entire breaking down of every truth we've held, of our whole consciousness, and it takes deep healing work to release the grief, the guilt, the shame, and take a chance on healing, because there's also the what if it doesn't work, right? There's always that side of it too. Most often, the emotional healing of the parent must occur before the healing path can be taken on for the child. Not always, but typically that's what has to happen for the parent to work through these steps in order to take on that healing for the child. But here's the most beautiful piece of it all, okay? I believe that our children are here to teach us, okay? Our children are here to teach us, to open our eyes, to awaken us, to break us apart so that we stand up from the ashes empowered, strong, and new warrior parents, okay? And in order for us to become that, we have to be broken apart. We have to be broken down, okay? So, as I said before at the very beginning, I'm a cheerleader for you no matter what your story is. Everyone's story is different, and we need to be here for one another, right? We need to stand side by side, hand in hand, together, unified, cheering each other on. No matter where you are in your journey with regressive autism or with any type of healing for your child or healing for yourself, everyone's story is different. Everyone's path is different. But no matter what, every child is special, beautiful, and unique. And this is important, parents. Just like your child, you too are special, beautiful, and unique. And that is the biggest lesson, right? We have to work on ourselves and our hearts and our healing. So anyway, I thought that was important to talk about today. I feel like it's really not talked about enough. And oftentimes it's like an us against them mentality. And there's a lot of that goes on. So what I would love to foster is a let's all work together mentality. So anyway, if this resonated with you, I'm so glad it did. If it didn't, that's okay. Just ignore it. But if it did, feel free to share it with someone that you think it might also resonate with. And that's all. Feel free to ask any questions, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. All right, bye.